If you grew up in the 1970s, there are things you did as a kid that would absolutely get your parents pulled over, fined, or arrested today. And here's the strange part. Back then, nobody thought twice about it. No one called it dangerous. No one called it irresponsible. No one called the police. We weren't fearless. We weren't tougher. We were just living inside a system that hadn't figured out yet how close to the edge we really were. This isn't a story about how the past was better. It's a story about how normal danger used to feel and how lucky a lot of us actually were. Kids riding in truck beds. There was a time when the back of a pickup truck wasn't a red flag. It was the best seat in the house. No seat belts, no helmets, no padding, just bare metal, maybe a toolbox, maybe a spare tire, and a bunch of kids sitting with their legs dangling, gripping the side rail like it was part of the adventure. You felt every bump in the road, every sharp turn, every sudden acceleration, and somehow that made it better. The wind slapped your face, gravel rattled underneath, and you waved at cars behind you like you were on a parade float instead of one bad turn away from disaster. Parents didn't panic. Drivers didn't get pulled over. Police didn't chase you down. It was just how things were done. Today, in many places, that same scene would trigger sirens, fines, maybe even a court date. Not because people suddenly got softer, but because enough kids didn't hold on tight enough, and enough luck eventually ran out. Cars with no seatbelts. If you ever rode in a big American car in the 1970s, you remember the seats. Long, shiny vinyl benches that felt like they'd been polished with lemon spray. No shoulder belts, sometimes no belts at all. When the driver turned right, everyone slid left. When the driver turned left, everyone slid right, laughing, bracing themselves with elbows and knees, treating basic physics like a party trick. You learned balance before you learned safety. Nobody strapped you in. Nobody checked twice. It wasn't neglect, it was normal. Today, letting a child ride like that would be considered reckless. Back then, it was just another way to pass time on a long drive, press shoulder to shoulder, sliding together like loose change on a dashboard. Smoking on airplanes. There was a moment in history when stepping onto an airplane meant stepping into a flying ashtray. Smoke curled through the cabin. Ashtrays were built into armrests, and nobody thought it was strange to light up at 30,000 feet with strangers, children, and infants sitting inches away. You didn't ask if someone minded. You didn't apologize. It was simply allowed. Flight attendants handed out drinks, sometimes cigarettes, and the haze was so thick it became part of the atmosphere, like turbulence or engine noise. Looking back, it sounds absurd. Today, the idea of someone striking a match on a plane would cause instant panic. But in the 1970s, it was just another reminder that comfort always came before caution, and no one imagined the air itself could be a shared risk. Lawn darts for kids. If you didn't grow up throwing heavy metal darts across a backyard, you might not believe this was ever sold as a family game. They weren't plastic. They weren't soft. They weren't rounded. They were solid, weighted darts with sharp metal tips, designed to arc through the air and land point first into the ground. The box showed smiling families, kids lined up, parents watching proudly, as if this were no more dangerous than tossing a frisbee. And we played it exactly like that. You'd launch the dart high, watch it spin in the sunlight, and hope it landed where it was supposed to. Sometimes it did. Sometimes it didn't. Back then, nobody talked about risk assessments or product liability. If someone got hurt, it was chalked up to bad luck or poor aim. Today, it's almost impossible to explain how casually something that dangerous was handed to children and called entertainment. Not because people didn't care, but because danger hadn't yet been translated into statistics, lawsuits, and warnings printed in bold letters. Getting paddled at school. In the 1970s, discipline didn't come with a meeting or a counseling session. It came with a paddle. A real one, flat, wooden, sometimes with holes drilled into it, hanging behind the teacher's desk like a reminder of who was in charge. If you crossed the line, you were told to stand up, walk forward, and take it. No debate, no explanation. Parents didn't protest. Many cases, they supported it. It was seen as order, not abuse. Correction, not cruelty. Students learned quickly where the limits were, not because they were reasoned with, but because pain made the lesson unforgettable. Today, for most Americans, the idea of striking a student in school feels unthinkable, even though in a few states it technically still exists. But at the time, it was woven into the fabric of authority. The classroom wasn't just a place of learning, it was a place where obedience was enforced physically, and nobody expected it to be any other way. No phones, no tracking. There was a kind of silence in the 1970s that no longer exists. When you left the house, you disappeared. No phone, no tracking, no check-ins. If you didn't come home until dark, nobody assumed the worst. They assumed you were busy. Parents didn't hover. Friends didn't panic. Being unreachable wasn't alarming, it was normal. You could wander for hours, ride bikes across neighborhoods, sit somewhere alone with your thoughts, and the world didn't demand to know where you were every second. That solitude wasn't loneliness, it was space. Today, constant contact is expected. Silence feels suspicious. Back then, silence was freedom. And while it didn't make life safer, it made it feel larger, slower, and strangely more human. In the 1970s, toy guns didn't look like toys. They looked real. Heavy, dark, detailed down to the grip and barrel, sometimes even made of metal. Kids ran through neighborhoods holding them, pointing them, pretending to be soldiers or cops, and nobody screamed. Parents didn't panic. Neighbors didn't call the police. Everyone understood it was play. There was an unspoken agreement that imagination didn't equal danger. Today, that same object would stop traffic, shut down a school, and possibly end a life before anyone had time to explain. The toy didn't change. The world around it did. Reality caught up to appearances, and suddenly, what once felt harmless became unacceptable. Not because children changed, but because consequences became impossible to ignore. Drinking and driving was normal. There was a time when having a few drinks and then driving home wasn't seen as reckless. It was routine. People talked about one for the road, like it was part of the evening, not a gamble. Bars emptied into parking lots, keys jingled, engines started, and nobody staged an intervention. The laws were looser. The warnings were quieter. Accidents happened, but they were framed as tragedy, not prevention failures. Only later did patterns emerge, numbers pile up, and stories connect. We understand today how dangerous driving after drinking truly was. But back then, the danger wasn't invisible, it just wasn't named yet. Responsibility came later, after enough lives proved that casual habits can still be lethal. Cigarettes from vending machines. There were machines that sold adulthood for pocket change. You dropped in coins and out came cigarettes. Sometimes beer. No questions, no ID. Kids could stand there, eye level with the buttons, buying things that today require warnings, age checks, and locked cabinets. It wasn't rebellion, it was convenience. Those machines stood in gas stations, diners, even some workplaces, humming quietly like they belonged there. And for a while they did. Only later did people stop and ask who those machines were really serving, and who they were quietly training. When they disappeared, it wasn't because the past was wrong, but because the future demanded better boundaries. Babysitters with no rules. Babysitting in the 1970s didn't come with training manuals or background checks. It came with a house key, a fridge full of soda and beer, and a quick wave from parents already halfway out the door. Teenagers were left in charge of children with no phone to call for help, no list of emergency numbers taped to the wall, and no expectation that anything could possibly go wrong. After the kids went to sleep, the house often turned into something else entirely. A cigarette by the window, a drink from the fridge, sometimes friends stopping by Because why not? It wasn't neglect. It was trust, stretched thin and held together by habit. Parents assumed maturity would rise to the occasion. Sometimes it did. Sometimes it didn't. Today, the idea of a 15-year-old drinking, smoking, and hosting friends while responsible for a child would cause outrage. Back then, it barely raised an eyebrow. Not because people didn't care, but because responsibility was learned by being handed too much of it too soon. We didn't grow up in a safer world. We grew up in a quieter one, where danger didn't announce itself with warning labels and alert tones. A world that trusted people to figure things out as they went, and sometimes paid the price when they didn't. Looking back, it's easy to laugh, easy to shake your head and say, you can't believe any of this was normal. But it was. Not because the past was smarter, or tougher, or better. It was simply unfinished. The rules we live with now were written by the mistakes we survived then. And every memory you just smiled at is proof that luck played a bigger role than we like to admit. If you lived through it, you weren't fearless. You were fortunate. Close your eyes for a second. You're 10 years old again. No phone in your pocket. No buzzing notifications. Just a banana seat bike, a pocket full of quarters, and an entire summer stretching out in front of you like an open road. Nobody tracked you. Nobody scheduled you. The neighborhood wasn't just where you lived. It was your entire kingdom. Honestly, they just don't make decades like that anymore. Today, let's revisit the legendary reasons why growing up in the 1970s was pure magic. Banana seat bikes. If you grew up in the 1970s, your bike wasn't just a bike. It was freedom on two wheels. We're talking bright-colored Schwinn's with long banana seats, shiny chrome details, and those giant ape hanger handlebars that made every kid feel like the coolest person in the neighborhood. The second you hopped on that bike, the whole world opened up. You could ride for hours without a single adult knowing exactly where you were. No GPS, no location tracking. Just be home before dinner. We raced friends down dirt trails, built sketchy homemade ramps, and pedaled to the corner store with pockets full of change for candy and soda. Every sidewalk felt like an adventure waiting to happen. Today, kids need apps just to socialize. But back then, all it took was a bike and a free afternoon. Our bikes weren't just transportation. They were independence. Pinball machines and early arcades. Before online gaming, there was the arcade. And honestly, nothing today quite compares to walking into one in the late 1970s. The neon lights glowed through the darkness, quarters clinked into machines, and the air was filled with electronic beeps, exploding sound effects, and the constant clanging of pinball bumpers. It felt electric. Pinball wasn't just luck either. It was pure skill, fast reflexes, and mechanical chaos. Flashing lights exploded across the glass while silver balls ricocheted around the machine at impossible speeds. And then came the early arcade games. Space Invaders, Asteroids, the kind of games that instantly drew crowds around the cabinet whenever someone chased a high score. But the best part, people actually gathered together. Friends stood shoulder to shoulder cheering each other on instead of sitting alone behind headsets. Gaming felt social, competitive, and alive. Back then, playing games wasn't something you casually did in the background. Gaming used to feel like an event. Rotary wall phones. Back then, making a phone call was practically a ceremony. You'd walk into the kitchen, grab that heavy rotary wall phone, and slowly spin each number while the dial clicked its way back into place. And somehow that tangled curly cord always stretched halfway across the house because nobody wanted their parents listening in. Calling someone took courage too. You weren't texting first. You were risking the terrifying possibility of their dad answering the phone. And if you were lucky enough to get your crush on the line, suddenly every sibling in the house became a secret FBI agent trying to eavesdrop on the conversation. There were no instant replies, no typing bubbles, and no doom scrolling while pretending to listen. If someone called you, they actually wanted to talk. Conversations felt personal. You stayed on the phone for hours twisting that curly cord around your fingers and talking about absolutely nothing. And honestly, that's what made it special. Muscle cars and dirt bikes. The 1970s still believed cars had personality. Back then, vehicles weren't quiet little computers on wheels. They were loud, rebellious, and impossible to ignore. You'd hear a Mustang or Camaro rumbling down the street long before you actually saw it. Chrome gleamed under the sunlight, racing stripes stretched across the hood, and those roaring engines sounded like pure American freedom. And if muscle cars ruled the streets, dirt bikes ruled everything else. Kids tore through muddy trails, kicked up clouds of dust, and launched over hills with absolutely zero concern for safety. No helmets half the time, just adrenaline, scraped knees, and stories to tell later. There was something raw about the whole era. Loud engines, open roads, reckless adventure. The kind of freedom that felt untamed and alive. Today, most cars feel silent, computerized, and packed with sensors telling you what to do every second. But the 70s made freedom sound like an engine. TV dinners and TV trays. There was something oddly magical about eating dinner in front of the TV in the 1970s. You'd unfold that metal TV tray, carefully balance it on the shag carpet, and place down a steaming aluminum tray filled with Salisbury steak, mashed potatoes, and corn that was somehow either lava hot or still frozen solid. Back then, TV dinners felt futuristic. Quick meals you could eat while watching your favorite shows on a giant wood-paneled television glowing across the living room. And somehow, even though the food wasn't exactly gourmet, it still felt special. The whole family gathered together. No phones at the table, no scrolling through social media while pretending to listen. Just sitcoms, laughter, and the clinking sound of forks against aluminum trays. Today, everybody eats distracted, staring down at separate screens. But back then, even frozen dinners brought people together. And honestly, that's why TV dinners still feel weirdly nostalgic. Even frozen dinners felt special in the 70s. Real cereal prizes. Kids today will never understand the thrill of real cereal prizes. Back in the 1970s, opening a fresh box of cereal felt like a treasure hunt. Before you even poured a bowl, your hand was already digging deep into the box trying to find the toy hidden inside. And when you finally grabbed it, pure childhood victory. Maybe it was a decoder ring, a tiny race car, a glow-in-the-dark monster, or some cheap little plastic toy that instantly became the greatest thing you owned that week. Honestly, the cereal itself was almost secondary. Saturday mornings were all about sugary cereal, cartoons blasting in the background, and that tiny moment of excitement before breakfast even started. And unlike today, the prize was actually inside the box. No QR codes, no apps, no entering a password online and waiting 6 weeks for shipping. Instant joy right there in your hand. Looking back, it's funny how something so small felt so exciting. But that's the magic of growing up in the 70s. Happiness used to come in tiny plastic treasures. Roller skating rinks. If you wanted to be where the action was, you went to the roller rink. The second you walked through those doors, it felt like entering another universe. Colored lights flashed across the polished wooden floor, a giant disco ball spun overhead, and the sound of rolling wheels mixed perfectly with the music blasting through the speakers. The Bee Gees, Donna Summer. Chic! Every song made you feel cooler than you actually were. And the roller rink wasn't just about skating. It was where friendships formed, crushes started, and entire Friday nights came alive. You'd skate in circles with your friends, show off your best moves, and pray you didn't wipe out in front of everyone during the slow skate. And somehow, every teenager looked like they stepped straight out of a catalog with feathered hair, striped tube socks, and bright satin jackets. There was an energy to those places that's hard to describe now. The roller rink wasn't just a place, it was a whole world. No smartphones or social media. The best thing about growing up in the 1970s might have been what we didn't have. No smartphones buzzing every 5 seconds. No endless scrolling at 2 in the morning. No online arguments with strangers you'll never meet in real life. Back then, life wasn't filtered through a screen. People actually spent time together. Friends gathered on street corners, laughed face to face, and talked for hours without checking notifications every 30 seconds. If you made plans to meet somebody at 3 o'clock, you showed up. Simple as that. And maybe the biggest difference of all was mental freedom. No algorithms fighting for your attention. No pressure to constantly post your life online. Embarrassing moments disappeared naturally instead of living forever on the internet. Today, people are more connected digitally than ever, but somehow more exhausted too. The 70s gave people something modern life struggles to recreate: the ability to truly live in the moment. We experienced life instead of documenting it. Porch culture and neighborhoods. Back then, neighborhoods actually felt like communities. As the sun started setting and porch lights flickered on across the street, families gathered outside instead of disappearing behind closed doors. People sat on porch swings drinking iced tea, neighbors waved from across the yard, and kids chased fireflies until late into the evening. Everybody knew each other. You knew which house gave out the best Halloween candy, which dad could fix anything, and which neighbor always had a cold soda waiting on hot summer afternoons. There was a warmth to those neighborhoods that felt safe, familiar, and deeply human. And for kids, the freedom was unbelievable. We played outside for hours without parents constantly hovering nearby. Sidewalks became racetracks, empty lots became baseball fields, and every summer night felt endless. Today, a lot of neighborhoods feel quieter, more isolated, more disconnected. People stay indoors staring at separate screens. But the 70s still felt connected in a way that's hard to explain today. It's incredibly easy to look at the frantic pace of modern life and long for the quiet sanctuary of our youth. The 70s taught us how to sit in silence, how to daydream, and how to find pure joy in the simplest, unscripted afternoons. We didn't need to document our lives to prove we were happy, we just lived. That beautiful, calm spirit never really leaves you, no matter how much the world changes. If you were lucky enough to be there, what is the one everyday memory from that era you treasure the most? Drop your stories in the comments below, give this video a thumbs up, and let's keep our shared past alive. Do you remember the sound of baseball cards clicking through bicycle spokes as you raced down the street on a hot summer afternoon? Or the smell of fresh-cut grass mixed with warm rubber from a garden hose lying in the yard? Back then, entire neighborhoods felt alive with kids riding bikes, climbing metal playgrounds, and staying outside until the streetlights flickered on. Parents barely knew where we were, yet somehow every child understood the rules. Many of those sounds, places, and little routines have quietly disappeared over the years. So tonight, grab a seat and come ride back through 10 unforgettable pieces of an American summer childhood. Banana seat bikes. The screen door slams behind you, and the sound of baseball cards clicking through bicycle spokes is already echoing down the block. A banana seat bike waits in the driveway, handlebars shining in the summer sun, ready to carry you farther than your parents can even see. Some kids had a Schwinn Stingray. Most had a Huffy from Kmart with chipped paint and crooked handlebars. It never mattered. The second those pedals started moving, the whole neighborhood opened up. Kids rode for miles without maps, phones, or adults following behind. You raced downhill, skidded across gravel, and disappeared into side streets until supper time. Today, children often stay connected to home every minute. Back then, a bicycle was usually the first taste of independence most American kids ever had. And that feeling of freedom showed up everywhere during summer, even in something as simple as stopping for a drink outside. DIY bike ramps and Evel Knievel era. Every neighborhood had at least one kid convinced he was the next Evel Knievel. It usually started with a crooked plywood board balanced on cinder blocks in the middle of the street. First came small jumps over sticks or soda cans. Then somebody suggested jumping over garbage cans, bicycles, or even other kids lying in the grass pretending not to be terrified. The famous wind-up Evel Knievel toy sat on bedroom floors everywhere, inspiring children to turn ordinary bikes into stunt machines. Nobody wore helmets. Scraped elbows, ripped jeans, and bent wheels were treated almost like badges of honor. Today, organized sports and safety gear often shape childhood activities much more carefully. Back then, many American kids learned confidence by inventing their own adventures with very little supervision. Sometimes parents even sat nearby watching the chaos unfold without stopping it. And for many teenagers, Another kind of bravery waited later at the local swimming pool. Drinking from the garden hose. After hours outside, somebody always grabbed the green garden hose stretched across the yard. The first burst of water came out almost boiling hot from sitting in the sun all afternoon, so you learned to let it run before leaning down for a drink. Then came that cold, rubbery taste every kid somehow remembers instantly. Nobody carried water bottles. Nobody stopped playing long enough to go inside. Baseball games, bike rides, and backyard adventures simply paused for 30 seconds around the hose before starting again. And somehow, that water tasted colder than anything in the refrigerator. Today, kids usually bring drinks packed ahead of time wherever they go. Back then, neighborhoods themselves provided everything children needed to stay outside all day long. It was part of an America built around trust, routine, and kids filling the streets from morning until dark. And every evening, one signal told everyone the day was almost over. Streetlights rule. As the sun starts dropping behind the houses, porch lights flicker on one by one across the neighborhood. Somewhere in the distance, a mother's voice calls out a child's name while bicycle tires suddenly hum faster down the sidewalks. Every kid understood the rule without needing a clock or a text message. When the streetlights came on, it was time to go home. Parents usually had no idea exactly where their children had spent the day. Kids moved from backyards to empty lots to neighborhood creeks without checking in every hour. Yet somehow, entire communities followed the same rhythm every evening. Fireflies blinked above the grass, crickets grew louder, and screen doors began slamming shut across the block. Today, many families stay connected constantly through phones and GPS. Back then, daily life often ran on shared routines and unspoken trust. And nowhere felt more dangerous and more exciting than the playground after lunch. Metal playgrounds and hot slides. By the middle of summer, the metal slide at the playground feels hot enough to fry an egg. Kids still climb to the top anyway, gripping monkey bars that smell like rust and sunburned steel. The rocket ship climber shakes when too many children pile inside, and somebody always dares another kid to jump from the highest platform. Paint peels off the railings onto sweaty hands, while sneakers scrape across scorching metal steps. Today, most playgrounds are covered with soft plastic and padded ground. Back then, playgrounds were built from steel, concrete, and whatever survived years of weather and thousands of children climbing over it. But that danger was simply treated as part of growing up. American neighborhoods during that era gave kids room to test limits, take risks, and learn confidence face-to-face with other children. And nowhere tested your courage faster than the spinning merry-go-round. Merry-go-round. The merry-go-round starts slowly at first, shoes digging into the dirt while kids push with both hands. Then the older boys begin running faster and faster until the whole thing turns into a silver blur. You grip the bars so tightly your palms start sweating while the world spins sideways around you. Somebody always loses their balance and tumbles laughing into the grass while everyone else screams for the ride to go even faster. There were no seatbelts, no warning signs, and usually no adults stopping the chaos. Today, playground equipment is often designed to reduce risk as much as possible. Back then, children learned limits by testing them together in public spaces filled with noise, speed, and competition. It was a time when neighborhoods became giant shared playgrounds every afternoon, and once the sun started lowering, many kids disappeared into another world entirely, the forts and tree houses hidden nearby. Tree houses and forts. Deep behind garages, empty lots, and patches of woods, kids built secret places entirely their own. Treehouses leaned crooked between branches with leftover lumber and rusty nails hammered in by small hands that barely knew what they were doing. Old blankets became roofs. Wooden crates became furniture. Some forts had no girls, allowed signs nailed proudly near the entrance, while others hid comic books, walkie-talkies, and stolen cookies from the kitchen. Long before video games created digital worlds, children built real ones outdoors using whatever materials they could drag home. Today, many kids spend more time gathering online than disappearing into vacant woods with friends. Back then, American childhood often revolved around creating private spaces away from adults, where imagination and freedom mixed together all afternoon long. And for one generation of kids, Those forts soon became headquarters for something even more dangerous. High dive board. The ladder to the high dive always looks taller once it's your turn to climb it. Wet feet slap against the metal steps while kids waiting below stare up from the pool deck. Halfway to the top, your stomach already starts tightening. Then you reach the board itself, wobbling slightly over water that suddenly seems a mile away. There's no graceful way back down because everybody's watching now, especially the girls sitting nearby with towels wrapped around their shoulders. So you inch forward, toes curling over the edge while your knees shake harder with every second. Today, many public pools focus more on structured activities and strict safety rules. Back then, places like the community pool became social stages where kids tested courage in front of entire neighborhoods. And once summer evenings arrived, many teenagers traded diving boards for another place filled with nerves, music, and awkward excitement, the roller rink. Roller rink and snowball skate. Colored disco lights bounce across the polished floor while wheels hum in circles beneath the smell of popcorn, cheap pizza, and rented skates. The roller rink wasn't just a place to skate. It was where teenagers gathered every weekend hoping somebody special might notice them. Boys leaned against arcade machines, pretending not to be nervous, while girls skated past in groups laughing beneath glowing lights. Then came the moment everybody waited for, the snowball skate. Couples joined hands during the slow song while the DJ's voice echoed through the rink, asking skaters to switch partners every few seconds. Suddenly, your palms felt sweaty just trying to hold someone's hand without falling over. Today, teenagers often meet through phones and social media long before seeing each other in person. Back then, places like roller rinks created face-to-face social worlds built around music, embarrassment, and shared moments. And after dark, the entire neighborhood became one giant game. Flashlight tag and kick the can. After a quick dinner, kids spilled back outside before the sky turned completely dark. Flashlight beams bounced across fences and backyards while crickets chirped loudly in the humid night air. Games of flashlight tag and kick the can stretched across entire neighborhoods, with children hiding behind bushes, parked cars, and garbage cans trying not to get caught. Bare feet slapped across wet grass while lightning bugs blinked like tiny floating lanterns near the trees. Nobody wanted the night to end because summer evenings felt endless once the streetlights came on. Today, evenings are often quieter, with entertainment happening indoors and on screens. Back then, neighborhoods themselves became gathering places where kids of different ages filled the streets together until exhaustion finally sent everyone home. Those long summer nights reflected an America built around shared spaces, familiar faces, and daily routines that repeated block after block across the country. Back then, daily life moved at the speed of bicycles, screen doors, and streetlights flickering on at dusk. Children filled empty lots, front yards, swimming pools, and roller rinks without needing plans arranged days ahead of time. Today, life often moves through schedules, notifications, and constant connection. Neighborhoods may look similar, but the rhythms feel different. Those summers were built around shared spaces, repeated routines, and entire communities living outside together until dark. Maybe that is why the sound of crickets at night, bicycle spokes clicking down the street, or water running from a garden hose can still bring people back there instantly, even after all these years. Remember the metallic taste of drinking from a hot green garden hose? In the 1970s, that wasn't just a hose, it was a neighborhood survival station. This object defined an era of wild, unsupervised freedom. But why has that gritty way of raising kids completely vanished? Those strict, unwritten rules were a goldmine for building tough, self-reliant individuals. But trying to raise a kid that way today would probably get the neighbors calling the cops. Let's count down the 10 wildest survival rules every 1970s kid followed. And number 1 will change how you look at modern parenting forever. Every child in 1970s America understood this rule without needing clocks, reminders, or text messages. The moment the sun sank behind houses and the sky turned orange, your internal countdown began. Kids squeezed in one last bike race, baseball throw, or game of tag before the Mercury streetlights flickered on across the neighborhood. You could hear bicycles skidding, screen doors slamming, and mothers calling from back porches as darkness settled in. Back then, streetlights marked the invisible border between freedom and trouble. Parents had no idea where their children were all day, yet every kid knew exactly when to head back. Today, GPS apps track movement down to the minute. But during those years, childhood depended on trust, responsibility, and simple, unwritten laws. Maybe that is why those glowing streetlights still trigger such deep, emotional nostalgia for so many people decades later. For kids growing up in the 1970s, a bicycle was far more than a simple toy. It represented pure freedom with 2 wheels and a squeaky chain. The second breakfast ended, children disappeared into neighborhoods for hours with no helmets, no phones, and absolutely no adult supervision nearby. You could hear baseball cards clipped into spokes clicking loudly as groups of kids raced down hot suburban streets smelling of fresh cut grass and baking asphalt. Bikes leaned across front lawns, outside corner stores, and beside baseball fields all summer long. Today, many children are driven from one scheduled activity to another with modern GPS apps tracking every single stop along the way. But back then, a bicycle became a child's very first real taste of true independence. It taught direction, risk, confidence, and personal responsibility before teenagers even dreamed of getting a driver's license. Almost every American kid from that era remembers hearing this line through tears after a sibling fight, a scraped knee, or some minor disappointment. Your mother stood in the kitchen doorway holding a dish towel while you decided whether to stop crying immediately or risk making things worse. Looking back, the sentence sounds incredibly harsh, perhaps even shocking to younger generations today. But in 1970s households, raw emotions were expected to be managed quickly and quietly. Parents firmly believed the world outside would never slow down for hurt feelings, so children learned early how to recover, compose themselves, and move forward. This did not mean parents lacked love. They simply expressed it differently. Modern parenting encourages children to dissect every emotion immediately. Back then, personal resilience always came first, and comfort arrived later in subtle, unspoken ways that built lasting character. Every kid remembers sitting near a window on a warm afternoon, pretending to focus on math worksheets while life happened outside without them. You could hear screen doors slamming, basketballs bouncing down the block, bicycles rattling past, and the distant music of an ice cream truck. Freedom waited right outside the glass, but homework always came first. Across America, parents treated schoolwork as a non-negotiable responsibility to finish before fun could begin. It did not matter how beautiful the weather was or how loudly friends yelled your name from the street. You stayed at the kitchen table until assignments were done. Today, entertainment follows kids everywhere through portable screens. But during those years, play remained entirely separate from responsibility. That boundary mattered. Children learned that free time was a privilege earned through effort, not an automatic right available every single minute of the day. Dinner tables in the 1970s often turned into silent standoffs lasting over an hour. A cold piece of meatloaf sat there while green beans lost all steam. You stared at them like poison, but leaving the kitchen table was never an option. Millions of American kids heard the exact same line every night: "Clean your plate. There are starving children in Biafra who would love that." Parents who grew up in the shadow of the Great Depression or wartime shortages carried those frugal habits straight into their adult kitchens. Food was simply not something you wasted casually. Even if you completely detested canned peas, you finished what was served because dinner was dinner. Today, many children choose customized meals or snacks instantly. Back then, meals reflected family structure rather than personal preference. It quietly taught true gratitude, deep patience, and the vital understanding that the entire world did not revolve around you. The back door swung open, cold air escaped, and your mother pointed outside without looking up from her chores. Go play. Once you were out there, you stayed out there. American childhood in the 1970s happened under the blazing sun, never under a ceiling. Kids wandered through vast neighborhoods, built hidden forts in empty lots, chased lightning bugs, and came home covered in deep grass stains. You could hear cicadas buzzing loudly during hot afternoons. When thirsty, you grabbed the hose. When bored, you invented games. There were no cell phones buzzing and no adults organizing your schedule. Today, modern children spend hours indoors surrounded by screens and constant supervision. But back then, open boredom worked wonders. It aggressively pushed generations toward wild imagination, genuine independence, and unforgettable backyard adventures that began with nothing more than a wide-open yard on summer days. You were halfway through a bike ride on a blistering July afternoon when someone yelled, "Just use the hose." Every kid ran across the yard toward that green rubber hose lying under the sun. The first burst of water came out scalding hot, tasting faintly of metal and warm rubber before turning refreshing and ice cold a few seconds later. The first burst of water came out scalding hot, tasting faintly of heavy metals and warm vinyl before turning refreshing and ice cold. Today, science warns us about the lead and chemicals in those old hoses. But back then, it just tasted like summer, scraped knees, and pure freedom. Every American kid from the 1970s remembers hearing this barked from another room before the sentence even finished. "Turn off the lights." The television glowed blue in the corner while static crackled softly after midnight. If a hallway bulb burned for 5 extra minutes, Dad walked through the house, switching everything off one by one like a soldier fighting the electric company. You heard the loud click of each switch echo through the place. Back then, children understood electricity cost serious money because parents made sure they felt that reality monthly. Nothing stayed running unnecessarily. Fans were flicked off, doors were shut. Even air conditioning felt entirely forbidden during hot summers. Today, homes stay brightly lit without a second thought. But back then, saving energy taught kids that household resources mattered, and mindless waste was something to avoid immediately to protect the tight family budget. You sat at the kitchen table repeating a word heard from an older neighborhood kid, not understanding its meaning. The second it left your mouth, the entire room went dead silent. Your mother slowly turned around from the sink with that icy look every American child recognized instantly. No immediate yelling. Somehow, that quietness made it much worse. In homes across the country, foul words simply were not tolerated, especially around adults. Children learned quickly that language carried heavy consequences. Sometimes warnings came fast, "Watch your mouth." Other times brought the legendary threat nobody ever wanted to test, having your mouth washed out with soap. Looking back, it sounds unbelievable today. But during that era, respect wasn't optional. That strict discipline taught us that words carried real weight, shaping our character long after the taste of danger faded. One of the strangest realities about growing up in 1970s America is that your parents were not the only adults watching you. If you rode your bike across someone's lawn, yelled near porches, or threw rocks, another parent corrected you immediately, and you listened. Summer evenings were filled with screen doors slamming, sprinklers ticking, and adults sitting outside in metal lawn chairs, watching the neighborhood unfold. Everybody knew exactly whose child you were. If Mrs. Johnson from down the street caught you doing something foolish, your mother knew before dinner time. There were no group texts or tracking apps. News simply traveled across wooden fences and driveways. Today, strangers hesitate to correct someone else's misbehaving child. But back then, authority extended beyond one household. The entire neighborhood shared responsibility, providing a comforting feeling that someone was always looking out for you in that closed neighborhood. None of these rules were perfect. Some were strict. Some would probably surprise younger generations today. But together, they shaped a childhood built around independence, responsibility, and neighborhoods that felt connected in ways many people still remember clearly. Back then, kids were expected to figure things out, stay outside, and come home when the streetlights turned on. Today, childhood often feels more supervised, scheduled, and connected through screens. Neither world was completely right or wrong. They simply taught different ways of growing up. But if one of these rules instantly brought back your mother's voice, write it in the comments exactly the way she used to say it. In the 1970s, you couldn't walk into a church potluck or backyard barbecue without seeing them. Shimmering perfection salads, glossy 3-bean bowls, and cheese balls surrounded by Triscuits. They ruled America for a decade, and then they almost completely vanished. Why did we stop making the dishes that defined our childhoods? Tonight, we're bringing back 10 forgotten 1970s side dishes that deserve a spot on your table this weekend. Prepare for a massive wave of nostalgia. because number one will instantly take you back home. 1. 3-bean salad. Long before pasta salads took over every cookout in America, 3-bean salad quietly ruled picnic tables across the country. Served in cold glass bowls beside hamburgers and hot dogs, this colorful mix of green beans, wax beans, and kidney beans carried that unmistakable tangy vinegar smell that instantly meant summer had arrived. The longer it sat outside during backyard barbecues and church potlucks, the better it seemed to taste. Recipes often came straight from the back of bean cans, making it affordable enough to feed large families without much effort. Under the sunlight, those glossy marinated beans almost sparkled beside paper plates and plastic cups. For many Americans, one bite still feels like summer folding tables and paper plates under the sun. 2. Waldorf salad.
Could you make me a Waldorf salad? Waldorf salad.
Well, I think we're just out of Waldorf.
In the 1970s, few side dishes felt more sophisticated than Waldorf salad. Crisp apples, crunchy celery, and chopped walnuts folded into creamy dressing appeared everywhere, from ladies' luncheons to holiday brunches. Served in crystal bowls inside grandparents' dining rooms, it carried the kind of quiet elegance middle-class America loved during the decade. Originally created at New York's Waldorf Hotel, the salad became a symbol of restaurant-style dining brought into suburban homes. Some families added grapes or marshmallows, while others stayed loyal to the classic recipe for that perfect sweet crunch. Back then, serving Waldorf salad made an ordinary dinner feel just a little more refined. And somehow, that sweet crunch still tastes like old department store restaurants and holiday afternoons. 3. Watergate salad. Few dishes capture the strange charm of 1970s America quite like Watergate salad. Made with pistachio pudding, Cool Whip, canned fruit, marshmallows, and chopped nuts, this fluffy green creation somehow became a holiday classic almost overnight. Nobody really questioned why it was bright green. In an era when convenience foods exploded across American kitchens, busy moms loved recipes that required almost no cooking at all. 5 minutes, 1 mixing bowl, and dessert was ready for the church potluck or Thanksgiving table. The soft texture, sweet flavor, and unmistakable color made it impossible to ignore sitting beside the turkey and casseroles. And despite how strange it looks today, thousands of Americans still bring it to Thanksgiving every year. It may have been artificial, fluffy, and overly sweet, but somehow it became part of the family. 4. Ambrosia salad. For many Americans, ambrosia salad doesn't just taste like dessert. It tastes like Christmas at Grandma's house. Bowls filled with oranges, coconut, marshmallows, pineapple, and bright red cherries appeared on holiday tables year after year, usually chilled overnight, so the flavors could blend together perfectly. Children often sneaked spoonfuls straight from the refrigerator before dinner even began. Every grandmother seemed to have her own version, carefully written on worn recipe cards stained by decades of holiday cooking. More than the ingredients themselves, people remember the feeling surrounding the dish, crowded kitchens, laughter in the background, and relatives gathered together for one special meal. Some families haven't tasted ambrosia salad since the relatives who made it are no longer here. And maybe that's why this dish still means so much. 5. Green bean casserole. No side dish represents American holiday dinners quite like green bean casserole. By the 1970s, this creamy combination of green beans, mushroom soup, and crispy fried onions had become the undisputed king of Thanksgiving tables across the country. Steaming Pyrex dishes crowded already busy kitchens while mothers balanced multiple casseroles at once, trying to feed entire families before the turkey got cold. The original Campbell's soup recipe became one of the most successful recipe campaigns in American history, proving that convenience food could become tradition almost overnight. Even today, the smell of fried onions baking in the oven instantly feels like the holidays for millions of people. Even people who claim to hate casseroles somehow still go back for seconds. For millions of Americans, Thanksgiving simply doesn't begin until the fried onions hit the table. What's fascinating is that many of these dishes survived for one simple reason: they reminded people of someone they loved. 6. Broccoli rice casserole. Broccoli rice casserole was the perfect example of 1970s comfort food disguised as vegetables. Combining frozen broccoli, canned cream soup, rice, and plenty of melted cheese whiz. This rich casserole became a favorite in homes where parents needed to feed large families quickly and affordably. It appeared everywhere: church suppers, weeknight dinners, community cookbooks, and potluck tables lined with aluminum trays. The creamy texture and buttery cracker topping somehow convinced children to eat broccoli without complaining too much. During the convenience food boom of the 1970s, recipes like this made busy family life feel manageable. Warm, filling, and inexpensive, it represented an era when casseroles solved almost everything. This was the kind of dish waiting on the stove after long school days and cold winter evenings. 7. Stuffed celery. Stuffed celery may be one of the most forgotten appetizers of the 1970s, but at family parties across America, it was once impossible to avoid. Crisp celery sticks filled with cream cheese spread sat neatly arranged inside divided glass relish trays beside olives, pickles, and carrot curls. Whether topped with paprika, pimentos, or chopped nuts, these little appetizers instantly signaled that company was coming over. They appeared at cocktail parties, holiday gatherings, and suburban living rooms where hosting guests was practically a social ritual. The crunch of cold celery mixed with creamy filling became part of the background of countless conversations and family celebrations. Today, the dish feels almost old-fashioned. It wasn't fancy by today's standards, but back then, it meant guests were coming. 8. Perfection salad. Few dishes capture the strange beauty of 1970s food culture quite like perfection salad. This shimmering gelatin mold suspended chopped cabbage, carrots, peppers, and celery inside clear-flavored Jell-O, creating something that looked halfway between a salad and a science experiment. Somehow, America decided vegetables belonged inside Jell-O, yet during the post-war entertaining era, presentation mattered just as much as taste. Hostesses proudly carried these sparkling molds to church luncheons and dinner parties, often serving them on decorative platters beside carefully folded napkins and crystal dishes. Making one correctly actually required patience and skill, especially when unmolding it perfectly without breaking the shape. As unusual as it seems today, these dishes represented pride, effort, and hospitality. In many ways, they reflected an America that truly believed food should impress people. 9. German potato salad. Unlike the cold mayonnaise-based potato salads found in grocery store deli cases today, German potato salad brought something warmer and heartier to the table. Tender potatoes tossed in bacon grease and tangy vinegar dressing filled kitchens with the rich smell of sizzling bacon and onions. Steam rising from the bowl meant the dish was meant to be eaten fresh, often beside sausages, barbecue, or roasted meats at family gatherings and church buffets. Rooted in German immigrant traditions, the recipe spread through Midwestern communities and Oktoberfest celebrations throughout the 1970s. Every family seemed to argue over the correct version, whether sweeter, smokier, or heavier on the bacon. But no matter the variation, it carried the unmistakable feeling of homemade comfort. Unlike cold deli potato salads, this one felt homemade in the deepest possible way. 10. Cheese ball accompaniments. In the 1970s, the cheese ball itself may have been the centerpiece, but the real magic surrounded it. Crackers, celery sticks, Triscuits, sliced vegetables, and little spreaders filled large party trays that sat in the middle of living rooms during holidays and neighborhood gatherings. Before smartphones and endless distractions, people actually gathered around these snack tables for hours. They talked about work, family, local gossip, and holiday plans while slowly circling the cheese ball throughout the evening. These party spreads became part of America's suburban entertaining culture, where inviting neighbors over was a regular part of life. The food was simple, but the ritual meant something deeper. People stood around these trays for hours talking, laughing, and reconnecting. The food mattered, but the togetherness mattered even more. Maybe these dishes weren't perfect. Some were overly creamy, brightly colored, or made from canned ingredients that would probably confuse modern food critics. But that was never really the point. They came from a time when dinner tables were full, Recipes were shared by hand on stained index cards, and neighbors still showed up at each other's doors carrying homemade food. These dishes belonged to church suppers, crowded holiday kitchens, backyard cookouts, and evenings when families actually sat together long after dinner was over. And perhaps that's what Americans really miss. Not just the recipes, but the feeling that came with them, the warmth, the laughter, the togetherness. Tell us which forgotten side dish instantly brings you back home.